the Detective Thorpe with the Atlanta Police Department, after consulting or talking to Gaither and Dennis, took out for these 4 individuals, charged the wrong people with the murder of Donovan Thomas, correct?
To that question, Your Honor.
Sustained.
When you, one of the things that you did when you first began to kind of look into what had happened in this matter is that you realized, and you said this in your report, if I'm wrong, maybe I'm reading it wrong, you correct me, okay?
Okay.
But one of the things that you said in your report is that it seemed as though the arrest of these individuals, by the way, these folks were arrested. I mean, they weren't just like suspected. They were actually put in jail, right?
We got that.
Okay.
Go ahead and ask your question.
All right, get in there. You said that this was almost entirely based on the statement of Mr. Spencer Wright.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And it turned out that Detective Thorpe, or whoever else was involved, did a ridiculously poor job of vetting or looking into Spencer Wright's statement. Isn't that true?
Well, there was surveillance video that Mr. Wright said he was a specific place, and there was video that would have showed whether or not he was there. That apparently was not inspected very closely prior to obtaining arrest warrants.
Right, well, in terms of not investigated fully, Spencer Wright, Thorpe spoke to Spencer Wright on the 19th of October, right?
Yes.
Now, when you came into the case, one of the first things that you thought to do was to really examine the statement from Mr. Wright. Is that true?
Yes.
And you did so?
I did.
And you spoke to him?
I did.
One of the second or third things that you did, right, just using some common sense, was to go and look for video around the location where you thought Spencer Wright would have been, right?
That's right.
And you did that.
I did.
And you were able to find it.
I was.
And it was pretty easy.
It was.
Detective Thorpe, before arresting folks based on your words, almost entirely the statement of Spencer Wright, never took the time to even go look for video where Spencer Wright supposedly would have been, did he?
Well, that I don't know. You would have to ask Detective Thorpe that.
Well, did you? Did you ask Detective Thorpe that?
Oh. I'm sure I did.
Let me guess. The answer was that he had not done it, right?
I remember the answer he gave at the preliminary hearing about the video.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. When you come into the case in 2016, was there any video that had been procured from that location?
Which
by Detective Thorpe, where the bus stop, where Spencer Wright would have been?
Yes.
Was there?
There was. Yes, there was a video camera, and in the viewable area of that camera was the bus stop where Mr. Wright said that he was standing at the time of the homicide.
Right. Had anyone gotten that video?
Yes.
Who did?
It was the specific investigator was probably either Frederick Page or Teague, Jason Teague, but ultimately it wound up in the possession of Detective Thorpe.
Okay. Before these 4 individuals were arrested or after?
Before.
Okay. And so even having the videotape that you looked at and that you made a determination was pivotal in the arrest or in the case, even having that information, Detective Thorpe still went ahead and swore out the warrant for the wrong people on October the 20th?
That's right.
So after you realized that Thorpe had not done what should have been done in the case, right? You went a little bit further and you got some recorded phone calls of Spencer Wright, true?
I did.
And you were able to listen to those calls and I'm not asking you what was said, but the contents of those calls, you were able to listen to those, right?
I did.
And those were also instrumental in convincing you that here we are in 2016, that the wrong decision had been made by the detective, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so would I be correct, sir, that you then, realizing as an assistant district attorney charged with the duties that we've just talked about, used all deliberate speed at that point and said, you know what? Detectives messed it up, got the wrong people in jail. We got to get them out of jail right now.
Yeah, well, I disclosed all of this to the defense attorneys at the time. I can't remember if well, Antonio Sledge got out of jail pretty quick because that case was just thrown out at the preliminary hearing. The other ones, I would have to review the record. I know that, well, I'll just leave it at that. If they were in jail, I don't know if it was just on this or other things. I just don't know.
Okay. Did you do, what do you call it down here in Fulton? Is it an NPGJ, not presented to the grand jury when you dismiss a case?
Yeah, it's a form. It's I don't know what I don't remember what it basically says. We're not presenting the case. The evidence is not sufficient. We're not presenting. That is, the DA's office is not presenting the case to the grand jury at this time.
Okay. And so when you realized what had happened in this case, when did you file such a form?
Well, so that would have been the elected DA at the time, Paul Howard, that would have authorized or maybe have even signed that himself. But Kenneth Copeland, well, no, I believe that was done with Kenneth Copeland.
Mm-hmm. When?
I don't recall the date.
Does 2017 sound about right?
Yes,
okay.
It does. I don't that. Again, I don't recall the exact date, but that does sound about right. Mr. Sledge, his was thrown out like January of 2016, I believe, whenever the preliminary hearing was. Mm-hmm. And as far as Garlington, and well, Stillwell, Jackson, aka Mr. Stillwell's, was never thrown out. And as for Mr. Garlington, I don't know. I don't know if there was an MPGJ filed on him or not. There should have been.
Okay. As you're reviewing the evidence in the case, and we've just talked about Spencer writing that information. You talked earlier and you were asked questions about this other video that you looked for. Remember that?
I did.
And you remember a little while ago you were asked questions about video from the Texaco gas station.
Yes.
Okay. You remember, and I think you testified that there was this video that you received or that you were able to review of vehicles at the Texaco gas station not far from the barbershop around the time that the incident occurred, right?
That's correct.
You talked earlier, if I'm right, about this Pontiac Bonneville, right?
That's correct.
You talked about other vehicles that you saw, correct?
Correct.
You talked about individuals that you saw there at the at that gas station, right?
That's correct.
You were asked by the prosecutor whether you saw Kenneth Copeland on any of those videos. Remember that question?
I do remember it.
Your answer was no.
That's right.
Because you did not see Kenneth Copeland at that gas station, that Texaco, sometime around the time that the murder occurred, right?
That's correct.
Right. You weren't asked, so I'm going to ask you, whether you saw Jeffery Williams on that video at the Texaco at around the time that the murder occurred.
Okay.
Did you?
No, I didn't see Jeffery Williams on there, no.
And you looked at the entirety of the video, right?
I did.
I think I heard you say that on all, I don't know if you said all of them, a lot of the videos, you went back and you looked at them multiple times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So January 10th, 2015, somewhere between, let's say, 6-something and 6:50 and 7:30, the time that you looked at the Texaco, Jeffery Williams is not on any video getting out of any car, getting into any car at the Texaco down the street from the barbershop. True?
That's true.
I heard you say that one of the things that interested you when you looked at that video at the Texaco is that you saw an Infiniti. Remember saying that?
Yes.
Okay. And you became interested in doing some additional research or investigation on that Infinity vehicle. You remember that?
I do, but actually, I think that if we're talking about when I decided to do certain things, I may have actually conducted additional research on the Infinity before it caught my attention on the Texaco footage. I can't remember the exact, but just to be precise, yeah, I mean, it was probably around that time, but yeah.
But one of the things that we know for a fact is that you determined that you wanted to get more information about this rental vehicle, right?
Yes, that's right.
And you did. You and or your investigator made contact with the folks at Hertz, right?
It started with me when I sent the subpoena to Hertz. And then after that, after receiving some documents from a woman named Carolyn Fry, then I asked David White to travel to the location where the vehicle was rented and speak with the staff at that location.
Okay. So let me ask you some very specific questions about any information that you gleaned about that rental vehicle. You testified earlier that one of the things you were able to determine is that the vehicle was rented in the name of Jeffery Williams. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Right. You were not able to determine who it was that actually rented the vehicle, just that it was in the name of Jeffery Williams. Isn't that right?
It was in the name of Jeffery Williams, his driver's license number, and his signature. There's a signature as well.
Now, tell me the date that vehicle was rented.
From what I remember, January 7th, 2015.
All right. So that would have been 3 days before January 10th of 2015, correct?
That's right.
All right. Now, tell me, if you can, who had possession of that vehicle on January the 8th of 2010?
2015?
What did I say, 2010? 2015, yes.
Yes. I don't know.
You don't know who had possession of that vehicle on January the 9th of 2015?
I do not know.
And you certainly don't know who had possession of the vehicle, no personal knowledge of who had possession of that vehicle on January the 10th, 2015.
If we're talking about actual possession,
Actual possession.
then no, I do not know.
Okay.